someone basing a unit ready for bug watch, so it doesn't look like it's gone live for people yet. Good old technology.
Good old technology. I'm refreshing. Oh, yes, we are live. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
So, apologies we're late. What happened? We started a little bit early, and I think that confused YouTube, and then we didn't go live. So we've been chatting, but you know what? It was such a good conversation, guys. We're happy to talk about it again. Hello, and welcome to Bug Watch. I am your boy, Davey, aka Swissley, aka the Fun Sponge, and I am here joined by good friend and finalist. Finalist, I think that's the word I would use to describe it.
Let's go with it.
At a super major GT with Tyranids. JP, how are you doing, JP?
I'm doing super good. I still think those introductions get better and better each time now. That's the third one you've had to do. I still can't beat yours. The Fun Sponge is still, I think, the greatest nickname that you can take as a Tyranid player. So I do appreciate that. But no, it's wonderful to be back on the show again. I'm looking forward to this one. It's going to be good to talk through all these things.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's funny, man. I genuinely, my next team jersey might have Sponge on the back. I'm not sure. Me and Aaron were talking about it. We think it could be a thing.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, I was lucky enough to be welcomed onto the Hellstorm gaming stream at the weekend when I was at a tournament. And the guys, Mikey was ace. His team was so sweet. You cannot be better looked after than on that stream. And we had a really fun game I was against a guy called Ash from Trash Wargaming. What a cool guy, really nice guy, and we just had a really belting game. Some of the comments, some of the people in chat did not agree. So what I want to do, JP, is just take a quick second to go through some of the nice things people said about me in the chat. This must have been the most infuriating 3 hours of my opponent's life. 5 identical turns, predetermined outcome. Love to see it. Might be sarcastic or might be genuine. Hard to tell. Fun Sponge was called that a couple of times. Oh God, why? After I brought back my 5th unit of gargoyles, 100 gargoyles. That's 760 points or something like that. That's so good. These nids are infuriating. Time has stood still. If you haven't seen the game, my opponent kind of stayed in the middle and castled up, and then I just tried to move block him in the entire game with 1 million Gribblies. And as a result, from a dynamic game point of view, no one really moved that much. So I think a few people had a bit of a pissy fit about that. Ban gargoyles, yeah, it's fair. Like they were obnoxious in that game. And maybe he's doing a challenge to win a tournament with no kills, which I mistakenly read before writing that in as maybe he's doing a challenge to win a tournament with no skills, which I thought, ooh, savage. Oh, it hurts. But no, good fun. You got to ride with the punches, right? You take all these models. It was a really fun game, and I think and I spoke to Ash, and Ash seemed to enjoy it as well. So it was good times. He got to blow everything up. Like, what else do you want?
Exactly. He got to kill a lot of stuff.
Yeah, too right.
It always comes down to the same thing, right? It's like, don't hate the player, hate the game. Like,
yeah, too right. I mean, yeah, it just does what it does, right? I just played that game the way I was supposed to play it. I can understand why people might not find it the most entertaining game. I killed 5 scouts and 2 infiltrators all game, which is just bizarre for 40k. But I really enjoyed it, and again, thanks to everyone who was a part of that show. It was really, really fun. The tournament itself was good. I went 3-3. A bit disappointed. I really wanted a 4-2 so I could have a really good recap show on Unending Swarm. Now I still have unfinished business. I need to get a decent GT result with it. It's definitely doable. I still think it's probably the best way to succeed at a GT. However, I am a little bit concerned that other players are getting savvy on how to defeat it. I've definitely noticed, and we'll see in some of the data, there's more players playing it. It's a lot more well known, and people. I mean, I played Jack Tight, who beat me very handily, who just worked it out instantly. He's like, "This is how I beat you," and I was like, "Okay." And I didn't get to respawn a unit once because of it. And guys, watch out for this: a 140 point castigator. Go and look at that data sheet. It's awesome. For 5 points more than an exocrine, you get 3 heavy bolters, a battle cannon. And when it hits you, you take a battle shock test. You know what Gaunts outside of Synapse don't like? Taking battle shock tests, because then you can't respawn them. So he played amazing. It was really great. I learned a lot from Jack in that game. He's just super good player. I lost on Purge of the Four because, of course, with Tyranids, that's what we do. That was against Votan. Apparently, we only scored 33 points on Purge of the Four on primary on average, which is telling. And then what else? I lost to Tom Lohman, 6++ his very own Tom Lohman. He was a great player. It was a very close game, coming down to the wire, but he took the win in the end. So well done to him. But yeah, so overall though, great event, criminally underattended, John. Like 50 players. Last time I went, I think it was 100. Yeah, a bit. I think because the South Coast GT was on the same day, and I think that's probably dragged a few people down.
Yeah, they had a couple of big events. They had a big one up in Scotland as well. Everyone's kind of got pulled apart as over the 3 events.
But I thoroughly recommend the event. It's a belter of an event. There's loads of food places. There's a few food places, but like the venue itself is amazing. Wings is like runs the event really well, and yeah, it's super cool event. But that's my thing. I have got an event this weekend. I'm not taking Unending Swarm. I'm taking World Eaters. I'm taking a load of skulls, Angron, and a bunch of 8-bound. I'm going to have some fun. I'm just going to blow someone to pieces just as a bit of a palate cleanser. And then I'm back. I'll probably be back on Endless Swarm next month for my next GT. But yeah, John, how's things going your end?
Oh, it's going well. I've had a couple of games actually. I've actually played probably more Warhammer in the last month than most. I'm currently taking part in a league at the store in High Wycombe at Tabletop Republics, the league I play in at the moment. Currently managed to sit undefeated in that, going into round 5. Played against a couple of really good players who are some of them known on the scene. Paulie Drukari, one-trick main, leader of Real Space Raiders, got to play a glorious game of 40k against that gentleman. He's an absolute gent. If any of you guys get to play against him, his Orange Drukari are some of the most beautiful models I've ever seen in my life. Got to play against him in one round and then just managed to dig him away out of that one, and then played against New Eldari, which was definitely an experience. That was definitely an experience where Gene Stealers and Lictors they do some work into that army.
What did he take in the Eldari?
Triple Fire Dragon, Triple Shadow Spectre. Didn't have the Scourges, which was quite lucky, I think, because my monsters don't mind things that aren't strength 12. So, to be fair, it was he was learning the mission. It was the new, I think it's mission 3 on UKTC supply drop, where you can only score on the center objectives. So I put 3 monsters and 10 gaunts on an objective and went, I guess this one's mine for the rest of the game because it was outside of range of his D cannons. It's a really weird mission to play against. Like the D cannons can cover 2 objectives. But you just play around the other ones and you just try and take them off because by the end of the game, you sit. I went second. I got 15 in the final turn on that last objective, and it kind of just it swings in roundabouts. And Eldari do struggle with new Eldari without the 3 scored units can struggle with the Tyranid monsters if they can't get in the right place. So if you can play around the D cannons, you're golden. If you can't, then it hurts. But managed to dig my way out of that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, big spoilers for one of the lists we want to see. Like full monster mash is a vibe that people are really leaning into.
Yes, and I think I think there's a pretty strong reason to why, and it's golden. Let's put it that way.
All right, cool. Well, I look forward to hearing about it.
But no, aside from that, no, been going really well. Looking forward to it. Got the last couple of rounds of the league, and then looking forward to the Oxford GT UKTC event in April, and then I've got a 2K event in June, I think, at TTR as well. So a couple of events on the horizon. Definitely going to be rocking the Nids for the foreseeable future. I've committed to at least one whole season of Tyranids, and then, well, I only own Tyranids, so it'll be Tyranids into the foreseeable 11th edition.
Very cool. Okay, and do you know what Detachment is still sticking to Invasion Fleet?
So currently, yeah. So I'm playing Invasion Fleet in the league. It's what I own, and I feel I have the most reps on, and I think it's the strongest mixed arms force that Tyranids can put out. If I had access to the Unending Swarm list, I would definitely be rocking that out because I think that it has some really interesting play patterns versus some of the top lists that the top list just can't beat. Like as much as they were fairly not positive about your on-stream game versus Ironstorm, that's how I think Unending Swarm is one of the best counters to Ironstorm in the game because you just don't let them move. Their shooting's not massively efficient into 160 gaunt models, plus you're respawning them. and you can make them really struggle in those matchups. I actually saw them play, and I think you played really well. And I think it's just a symptom of that matchup. It's pretty rough.
Oh man,
Unending Swarm is pretty good, I think, against some of the top armies.
yeah. I think it's funny. I said it to Mikey when he interviewed me afterwards. I didn't play 40k for 2 weeks, and then I went back and had some practice games, and I got ruined in 3 practice games in a row because I was trying to play 40k like the way that everyone plays 40k. It's like, duck and weave, shoot and get angles. And then I just went, oh my god, this isn't how you play in Unending Swarm. Like, what am I doing? Okay, right, I just move block people. My favorite game of the weekend, actually, just to talk about like some of the stuff you can do with that army. I played Hypercrypt, and
Ooh, spicy.
I went first, screened out the entire board turn 1. I got 2 8-inch charges off with Hormigans into Immortals, so they didn't teleport. and then I spent 3 turns touching a monolith, so that didn't teleport. Lictor picked out the guy in the Wraith unit for turn 1, so they had no feel, no pain. So it was a really, really good game. My opponent won again. Like, I was very lucky. I had like 6 awesome opponents at the weekend. Like, everyone was super sweet. Big shout out to Ben, who watches the podcast. He's a Tyranid player, but decided to defect to Votan and batter me on Purge the 4. But yeah, well, good to see you though, mate. And he's High Fleet Typhon on Instagram. He's got a wonderful, wonderful army. But yeah, no, it was good. It was good. It is a great detachment, and I think you can learn so much in terms of different skill sets from it. I was going to say, yeah. So we'll crack on. One thing I would want to say is the artwork on this. I couldn't not use it. I think it's amazing. I just want to shout out the creator. It's on DeviantArt, and the creator is in the description below. So go and check out some of the other pictures. They're amazing. Cool. So we're going to talk a bit about where Tyranids are in the meta, what's changed since the balanced data slate, and then we're going to look at some lists because that's what we like to do. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We will absolutely love to answer them. And also like and subscribe, please. That would be awesome. Cool. Right, bounce. Let's go. So, bit of an interesting one in terms of detachments and how we're kind of panning out. So we're seeing more players with more detachments seeing more players, with Synaptic Nexus being left out in the cold, losing 15 percentage point in player share. And what I mean by player share, if you don't know what that is if you use it as a percentage, they've a lot less people are moved from Nexus to other detachments, therefore their share of Tyranid players has increased. So you can see actually pre-Dataslate, Synaptic Nexus was about 1 in 4 Tyranid players, and it's dropped down to just over 1 in 10. Those players have then moved into a little bit into Vanguard Onslaught, the majority into Invasion Fleet, and a couple into Unending Swarm, and even a couple mad people into Crusher Stampede. Now, we're not saying these are all the same people, but it's interesting to say, like, some players coming in and playing something, some people leaving potentially and playing something else. But interesting to see Invasion Fleet take the bigger share, the lion's share. And I suppose that's just because they have that flexibility, right, John? Does anything here surprise you?
No, not massively. Invasion Fleet is an incredibly forgiving detachment. You have a 5 at Feel No Pain for 1 CP or 0 CP that you can use on 2 things. You get sustained hits versus infantry and swarms, or you get lethal hits versus vehicles. It's very forgiving in terms of your output's always going to be solid. You don't need to play too many sort of key units to enable other parts. You can just run 3 exocrines and roll 6s to hit versus vehicles and mow down vehicles. I mean, I've played games against Chaos Knights and I've killed 3 War Dogs in a turn because I've rolled really well on 6s, and it just gets you out of some tight situations. I think the likes of Vanguard Onslaught and Crusher Stampede are less forgiving because of those things, and their output's going to be slightly worse because they don't have the inbuilt sort of utility of sustained or lethals. Then Unending Swarm, I swear, is one of the hardest armies in the game to play, but is also probably one of the most rewarding ones, and that's why
Stop it, John. Stop it, you. Come on.
But it doesn't play like any other, like all the other detachments. Invasion Fleet, Vanguard Onslaught, Synaptic, Crush Stampede, and Assimilation Swarm all kill things. They all have enough output to kill things, but you're suddenly playing an army that doesn't really kill that much, as you obviously found at the weekend. you've got to play a completely different way. And I think that people have, as much as they've started to learn how to play against it, people have started to think, actually, this might be a really good way to play 40k with it becoming a vehicle-heavy meta in places. Then Unending Swarm is really good. As long as you dodge the triple Gladiator Reaper, then I think you're in a really good position. But I think, to sum it all up, I think Invasion Fleet will always be the highest played because it's very beginner friendly, it's very player expressive, and it's very forgiving if you miss position.
Yeah, you can take so many different units, and again, I'll put it in the I'll maybe put it in the chat or the comments after the video. But if you go to this dirty, I forgot what it's called now, dirty stats or something like that. The website is. You can see the what units are taken in which lists, and by quantity and stuff like that. They used to do like what X and 1 players would take and what X and O players would take as well. So you could see like what the best players are taking. But what I think, if you look at that website, Invasion Fleet, you can almost take any unit in Invasion Fleet. I think that's what's really cool about it. Hey, your Tyranid collection is a bit hit and miss in terms of what you got. You can just throw it all in there, and it'll perform to a standard. So,
I mean, I can attest to that. Nottingham was definitely the day of throw stuff in an army list and see what sticks, and it works. And again, it's all on the back of how. And I say forgiving in a really positive way. It's not a negative to the detachment. It's just super forgiving style of play, and it's also very rewarding as well because you don't feel like, say for example, you misposition one of your monsters, it gets a 5 at feel no pain. You can afford to play a little bit more aggressive at times versus certain armies, put stuff out in the open or on weird angles to try and get into things without having to think, okay, what's going to happen to me on the way back? Which some of the other detachments have that problem, where they can't just sort of go, oh, my Malaceptor has its tail poking out too far to get a line of sight to that unit, and now it's being shot by 8 Dart Lances. Well, half of those Dart Lances are going to bounce off, and then a third of that damage isn't going to stick. And it's kind of, that's why I find Invasion Fleet kind of unsurprisingly the heaviest play.
Well, that brings us nicely on to Vanguard Onslaught, which has 50% more players than it did before. Well, 50% more share than it had before. I really like the detachment. I think it's great. Obviously, played it a lot. I just think in like Necrons against Custodies, geez Louise, there's not a detachment I want to play less than that. Yeah, it feels really rough. I can see why Synaptic Nexus maybe has gone down, because I think everyone started to realize zone throw-ups are a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, I think so. I'm surprised Synaptic Nexus took that much of a hit. It has some very good anti-Necron builds, but they do struggle. So, for example, I think one of the most powerful Synaptic Nexus build is the triple Norn build. It's very good against Necrons. You pick either Norn Assimilator or Norn Emissary, whichever one you go for. They've all got 2-up saves. You get access to Armor of Contempt, so Wraiths do literally no damage to you in combat. They hit you with a load of wounds, and you go, cool, I have a pile of 2-up saves and a 5 at feel no pain on the objective. But the big thing with the Norns is they get access to OC 15 on objectives, and a Wraith unit has OC 13. So a Wraith unit can no longer just sit on an objective versus a Norn. So if the Necron meta is big in your area and you have access to multiple Norns, Synaptic Nexus is probably one of the better builds to go versus them. But the problem is, at the moment, the meta is so split between Custodies, which Norns are actually pretty good into. Again, they're big monsters. And Custodies can struggle versus monsters, as we can talk about later on. But the Guard potentially is an issue, and also Iron Storm with a load of anti-tank weapons can be a bit of a problem for them to deal with. I'm surprised. I don't own any Norns, but I'm very interested by that triple Norn Synaptic Nexus list in this current meta, just because you sit 15 OC on an objective and go, you have to try and take it off me, because you can't kill me at range, and you probably can't kill me in combat, so you've got to find another way around it. So it's kind of quite an interesting one. So I'm surprised the drop's so big, but I can also see people moving away from that into Invasion Fleet with some of the changes.
Well, one of the it depends. I think Synaptic Nexus is really interesting because you can go 2 ways about it. You can lean into rerolling ones to hit like castles, which I think makes sense. So you could have those Norns all on an objective, reroll ones to hit, shoot things that'd be good into Custodes, for example. The other one is to lean into the mortal wound stratagem. And you don't necessarily want to do that against Custodes or Wraiths led by Technomancers. So I think maybe that's
Yes.
why, and as well that kind of build was really quite nice into Eldari, when that was good because you could just bring up a if they left their autark just a little bit out of the open or their Farsi a little bit out on the open, you could potentially do D3 mortal wounds to it and then do extra if you needed or whatever, which is pretty sweet. If it fills a battle shot.
It feels like the leadership values of the format has improved as well, which kind of why Synaptic
Yeah, it's true.
struggles.
The metas, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like you're it's why I find Neurolictor slightly less efficient because the general leadership of the format is now 5 or 6, and battle shocking that is just a struggle.
Really good point. That's a really good point. I think at the weekend I had 3 because I really wanted an option to wound anything high toughness that I needed to get rid of with exocrines.
I think you need it in Unending Swarm.
Yeah, well, no, but I think you're right in terms of leadership. Right, Custodes 6, Necrons units that you want to kill I think are 6 because they've got characters leading them. Yep. Obviously Marines is like 6 as well. Even Drakari are bloody 6. Like so with no modifiers, you just don't really, it doesn't necessarily go off. So what I did use them for and what they were amazing at was being lone ops on objectives, which was really good, but I could just do that with a normal Lictor. So that is one to think about. Thank you very much.
I think again it links into why Invasion Fleet is kind of the bread and butter detachment for Tyranids, is because it has a really solid game plan and the battle shock is kind of a nice backup plan. Because your raw output's so good with sustained and lethals, whereas the other detachments, they kind of need those battle shock synergies to get the damage through.
Yeah, cool. And then Crush's Unending Swarm, we've seen a few more players. I mean, there was 2 at the weekend. This doesn't include the weekend's data, by the way, just to let you know. There was 2 at the weekend at the event, including myself. So you can see that more people are experimenting with it, which is good. We've got Crusher Stampede as well, which has got a few more players. I think obviously you drop a T-Fex to 190, people are going to start trying to
exactly,
and a Screamer Killer to 145. People are going to try it.
Yeah, and the Norns went down 30 points each, so it's a monster mash list. People are going to realize that it's better in other detachments, but
yeah, I was trying to make one as a meme because I was going to take it to this weekend as a bit of a meme, like a bit of fun, because again, I just wanted a bit of a palette cleanser, and I just was building it, and I thought, oh my god, what if I get guard? Like it's just auto lose. Like, oh, you mean like a Rogel Dawn just wipes out? Like a demolish. What do you call it? Sorry, a tank commander, which nearly every army has 2 of. Strength 14 just blows things to pieces. And even the Necron builds have like the Locust Heavy Destroyers, things like that. It just sounds awful. So yeah, I just binned that off and thought I'd try something else instead. But yeah, so and then of course the bottom one is Assimilation Swarm, which given that no one likes it, is appealing to me more and more because I'm just like, well, I do have 3 Harris Mexes. I do have 4. I think I have 3 Pyrovores. Could buy some more, and I've got tons of Rippers. So we have what I would like to put more Norns in. I would like that would be a Norn heavy list for me, I think. Yeah. But watch this space. Maybe after Unending Swarm.
Yeah.
So looking at the win rates on the right hand side, you can see pre-Dataslate and post-Dataslate. So you can see that 2 detachments have increased their win rate. So we've seen Invasion Fleet not only increasing in players, but also increased in win rate by 4 percentage points, which is really good. We've seen Unending Swarm also increase to 52%. So I'm dragging it down after this weekend with my 50% win rate. So yeah, there's but that's interesting to see that is now I'm going to say it's the number 1 win rate faction detachment, because Assimilation Swarm is just so few players that 60% doesn't count. We also see Vanguard Onslaught drop off significantly, so maybe a lot of those new players coming in are just finding their feet and realizing, oh no, I die real easy.
Yeah.
I cannot just stand in the open. I'm at threat. Synaptic Nexus also a bit of a drop there, and then Crusher Stampede got all those new players and 40% win rate. So overall, not great. But Yeah, and the simulation swarm's an interesting one. I mean, the one player or two people playing it 60%, fair play to them. You know, that's a 3-2, right? So
Yes.
not terrible, not terrible at all. Any surprise in there for you, John?
No, not particularly. I think the invasion fleet statistics are always going to be middle of the road. Tyranids generally are a very popular faction. I went to kind of a car boot sale, but for Warhammer, well, for war games, so it was a war boot. Just a really good place to meet new people and obviously buy and sell stuff. And there was about half a dozen people, like 3 or 4 of the people there are like, oh yeah, I'm wanting to get into Tyranids. And I'm like, yeah, no one's selling Tyranids at the moment because they are an incredibly popular faction. Just like they're great to paint. They're really enjoyable to play. You've got loads of different play styles. But at the same time, the bigger the percentage of players, the more even the win rate's going to be, because you'll have, for example, people like you'll go to an event and you'll have someone who'll go 5-0, and you'll also have someone who go 0-5. And because Tyranids are such a popular faction, that might be one person at 5-0, 3 at 4-1, and 5 people at 1-4 or 0-5, and it kind of just averages itself out. Whereas when you get to like Unending Swarm, Assimilation Swarm, where you've just got physically a very few number of people playing, it's gonna the win rate of the win rate is much more spiky, where it will go up and down very quickly.
Yeah, it definitely skews it, right? And then when you're absolutely right, the more you get, the more like more of a mediocre number you'll get to, I suppose, because of the averages. Cool. All right.
I am very happy about the invasion fleet win rate though, because it's still in that Goldilocks zone that Games Workshop want it to be.
It's in the Goldilocks zone, and it's not in the nerf zone, which is nice. So we'll see. We'll see what. I don't know. I mean, I can't. I mean, I'm already thinking to the next Dataslate. Like, what could they change? What surprises could we get?
They could do with dropping the points on a few things. Hive Tyrants is too expensive still. The Swarm Lord is unplayable. Toxicrins, Harpies. There's 4 things there that you could definitely already say, why didn't we touch these?
Here's a question. How many points would a Harpy have to be for you to play it? With its 1 Venom Cannon with D3 shots twin linked, strength 9 -2/3 damage, I think.
So it's 3. It's 9 -2/3. It's the standard heavy Venom Cannon profile. The problem is because they ignore line of sight, because they're aircraft, and they do have a bombing. They can bomb stuff as well.
Well, so only if they're not in hover, which I suppose you wouldn't put them in hover, would you? You just
fly on. You're probably looking at about. So it's the problem is it would have to come down quite a lot, because even when it gets down to like 170 points, it's fighting against Malaceptors and Trigons, and I still think they're better for the points you spend on them. Now that it's a twin linked heavy Venom Cannon and a twin linked Barb Strangler, you would probably, I think you'd need to rework the rules on a Harpy rather than potentially just drop its points and try and work out a way of actually just making it playable. If you went back to them being 2 individual heavy Venom Cannons, then I'm a lot more interested, because it's physically more shots. But at the moment, I think a lot of it's move around the boards, which is the Toxicrins issue.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Carnifex, right? So it's like a Carnifex with a heavy Venom Cannon that flies and can't fight but does bombs. So I think 125 points is what it would have. No, maybe. I mean, I don't take Carnifexes, so 115 points, maybe 10 points. That would have to constantly.
It would need to come down significantly. But then also, like, even if you come further down the food chain, Exocrines are 135, and I can bring them in from Strat Reserve on turn 2 and do more damage than a Harpy. And it's kind of, that's the biggest issue, and I think that's why you really need to look at reworking the Harpy itself rather than just dropping the points, which is probably the same with the Toxicrin. It's just not. It's on UKTC. You cannot move it because it's about 4 miles wide.
Yeah, it's a big hug.
It's AP. It just doesn't do anything. It's AP1 in a format with 2 up saves and armor of contents, and it just isn't. It isn't good enough, and it's 180 points, which doesn't help either.
Indeed. So before we go on to the next slide, I'll just quickly go to the wall. We've got some people, Christopher Richardson and L. Ginge. Both giving me thank you very much for the kind words on the minging comments in the chat, and then we've also got Bread, who was at the event as well. Hey Bread, he killed 3 custodies in a game this weekend with his swarm, so well done. That's impressive, to be fair. That's a few that's a few that's a few saving rolls of a 1 right there. And then we've got Elgin also saying, when we were talking about Norns, he pointed out that they still feel overcosted for what they do, and I I don't know. I think actually at the price they're at now, like I would consider it.
I'm scared of them coming down too much more because of it being a 2-up, 4-up, and a 5-up feel no pain, 16 wounds, and T11. What 275 at the moment? I think of just pulling up Battle Scribe so I can actually remember how many points they cost. The one with the 4-up invulnerable save, the Norn Emissary, is 275 points. That's I mean I wouldn't drop it any further below 250 because it's.
But he could take 8. Well, 7
really,
and a character.
6. You can
6. Sorry, yeah, of course. No, yeah. Sorry, yeah, of course. Sorry, the rules. Yes, the rules, John. Yes.
Yes. And it's pretty good. Like it has, and it's a versatile threat. It's got 3 different shooting profiles. It's got damage 3 in combat with a load of attacks, and it's just very resilient. Yeah. So T11, 2-up, 4-up, 16 wounds, OC5, and I think it's kind of like when you put that all together, 275 is potentially 5 or 10 points too many points, but if you bring it down too far, it's pointless taking anything else. Like you'll never take a Malaceptor again.
Yeah.
Because you just slam a Norn on and go, cool, you are literally never killing me off this objective.
Yeah, wise words, John. Wise words. We've got Lonely Sambar here. Clearly not enough disciples out there trying, Lithurus disciples out there trying the Heavy Morlock Lexis list. I've been getting a bit of tutoring from Eric, and he is a very intelligent bloke.
Yes.
I love that Morlock list. I think it's amazing. Try and play it. It's bananas hard to play. And as well, I think it's really good into the previous meta of Eldari. I don't know how I don't think it does anything into Custodies, right? Because you bring all those Morlocks up, you say, haha, you failed the battle shock test, take Mauls. And the Custodies go, haha, 4-ups. And then you don't kill any. And then they come and slap your Morlock in the face. But I do love the list, Lonely Sambar. It is a belter. And the creativity that guy has to build lists is unbelievable. Entropic Tyranny. Now that Night Spinners are less common, a Hive Guard back on the menu with their indirect. For me, the answer is no. I would every time I go, I want maybe we could get those on and maybe they could kill some I don't know naughty infiltrating units that I don't like. And then you look at the profile and your opponent is taking cover saves at 1 damage, and it just stinks. I don't know if you have a different opinion on that, John.
They're probably about 50 points too much at the moment. The 5 -1/1 it tickles Custodies, it tickles Necron, and it's arguably pretty good against Eldari. Like
they're great, yeah, not bad against Eldari, but again,
on a 4-up save, you just make them take a pile of wounds, but they're 220 points for 6.
But they don't go on a 4-up save, right? Because they've got cover, so they go back to 3.
You're -1. Yeah, so Scourges have you just roll a load of dice at people and go, cool, how many 1s and 2s do you roll? I just think that they're too expensive. If they were like, I don't know, 150 for 6, I'd be super interested into them. The shot cannons is also a really interesting one. I just don't. If you compare it to like a Manticore, it's comical the difference. A Manticore's 180, and you've got these Hive Guard, and they're just like, yeah, no. Personally, for me, it's going to be a no, and they need a significant points drop before I'll even consider them.
Yeah, and even when you look at the ability, like, okay, but what ability do they have? What kind of interesting thing are they bringing to the battlefield? They Overwatch on 5s, but they can't Overwatch indirect.
Nope.
So you could go, okay, shot cannon, that's fine. It's -1.
Yep.
So yeah, you win your vehicles on 2s, but then they're just saving, and it's 2 or 3 damage. I can't remember. Might be 3.
It's 3 damage.
So it's not the end. It's not great, but like, man, you're not spending 220 points on AP1. Yeah.
Their output's just not very good, and they're too many points. And I think you could very easily, that unit could come down, and I think it would then be a really interesting choice. Actually, if you could get it down to like 170, 150, then absolutely.
Yeah, it's 110 for 3, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but you want 6 if you're going to do it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. So we'll just jump back into the presentation, and we'll come back to some of the questions in chat after this slide. So I also looked at the stat check chance to win, which is brilliant. I love this. This is so interesting because it's a good number to have in your head when you're trying to plan out how you're going to win a game. So if you say to yourself, right, I'm going to take Invasion Fleet. How many points do I need to score to have a really good chance of winning? So Tyranids as a total, the stat check website, and again, if I'm reading this wrong, by the way, please tell me, but this is the way I understand it. if you score 79 points, if you hit 79 points and it's turn 4 or whatever, you have an 80% chance of winning that game based on what they do is they get every single game that's been won and they string it all out. And then they say, which of these did they win? And they go, bang, there's the line. You've got an 80% chance of winning if you score this many points. So when you score 79 points as a turning player, you have an 80% chance of winning the game. Invasion Fleet, 73. So obviously that we saw that they have a higher win rate. They're doing a lot better at the moment. So as a result, you need to score less points on average to win that game. Vanguard, you need to score a lot more, 87. Synaptic Nexus was like 95 points you need to score to win that game. I think this is skewed by low numbers, right? To be totally clear, but it's a good direction, right? A good direction in terms of how hard you're going to have to work to win games. Unending Swarm was 66 points, which is bananas. And telling me that I'm not playing it right, I need to work harder. Crusher Stampede was 95 points. And Assimilation Swarm, again, super low numbers here. I think like the 4 games played or 5 games played or something, 67 points. So still very interesting to look at. I think the telling one really, the one that I would probably hang my hat on and say that's a really a number that I would take away with me to games is the Invasion Fleet at 73 points. It's like, okay, how do I get to that as quickly as humanly possible? And then after that, can I sail away and win the game? Anything interesting on here for you, John?
Again, Unending Swarm and Assimilation are kind of skewed by the lack of players, but I do kind of agree. I'm surprised that it's an 80%. It's a really unusual way of working it because Tyranids just score really well. Like I scored 70 odd points in a game with Invasion Fleet versus Custodes where I never really left my half of the table. I still lost the game because I was just too far behind, but it's a really interesting metric. But I do on the whole probably agree with it all. I think Invasion Fleet is probably lower than I thought it was going to be. I thought that would have been kind of about 80 points.
I would have said
around,
80, yeah.
around the total average. But yeah, again, it's an 80% chance of winning the game, so I kind of do understand that.
I think it really shows how well we score, but also how well people can score against us.
And that's the thing. Yeah, that's the other thing you got to remember. This is an 80% chance scoring. You score, say, for example, you score 95 points with Synaptic Nexus. There's a 20% chance you lose the game. That's quite scary.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend checking out Goonhammer's website as well, because that'll break it down by missions. So like how many points on average a Tyranid player scores in each mission. Mm-hmm. So again, I mentioned it before, but on Purge of the Four, I would average primaries 33 points, which is pretty bad. So like you can see which is your hardest mission, and also you can benchmark yourself and go, okay, which mission am I not getting? Which one am I not understanding? And not scoring enough points on. So definitely check that out on the Goonhammer website. Cool. So we're going to look at some lists. Oh, we'll just quickly ask these questions, answer these things that just come in chat. So Christopher, hello to Let's Talk Wargaming. How are you? Good, sir. You're good. Christopher Richardson, any units you guys might be sleeping on at the moment, or do we have it figured out at the moment? I know JP likes Raveners as action monkeys.
We've never had it. We've never figured this for. Tyranids is very difficult to figure out, and there's no one way to play the army. In terms of stuff we're sleeping on, it's bizarre. Like I love Gene Stealers, like a couple of small 5-man units. I love normal lictors. I'm not a fan of neurolictors. If you wanted something that we're kind of sleeping on that people don't play, one is definitely Raveners. The up down for 75 points is really good. Bizarrely, like I just look at the book and I'm like, probably if we're looking at something to sleep on, it's probably just Norns. Like they're at a point now where they're probably cheap enough to play against other things, and it's very meta specific. I love Raveners. They're fast moving versus stuff that's light infantry, so they can get into Eldari really quickly. They're great actions because they go up and down on the board. But I think because our codex is so diverse in what you can play, what I play will be different to what another Invasion Fleet player plays, but we'll generally merge in there's a few things that are locked in. Triple Exocrine is basically bread and butter. Yeah. Like if you aren't taking Triple Exocrine, I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I don't know what it is. I swear by my Trigon. Like I swear by that unit. I think it is phenomenal efficiency. I'm looking to try 2 of them. And then it's kind of other things like the more you play. Like I think that, for example, a Hive Tyrant is needed in Invasion Fleet, but then if you look at other formats, it's not. So it's kind of one of those things. I'm not really sure. We've definitely not figured Tyranids out, but I'm not sure there's a real like sleeper thing outside of potentially Raveners just for action stuff.
I think it's more about adapting to whatever's new in the. So the answers for the last meta are not the same answers for this meta, and I think that's what. I think some lists have just been ported straight over, and I think that's probably the error, right?
Yep.
I would like to see. I mean, one of the things I've been looking at, thinking, that could be a vibe, is Barbgons.
Interesting.
50 point or 60 points, I think it is.
Yep.
But Custodes, you can trick them on to getting into a side objective and then like just evacuate that corner of the board and just keep peppering them with Barbgons. Could be a way to do it. Maybe there's a ways to, Canoptech, if you ever play that ever again, you can potentially maybe do something there. There's a few infantry armies around that maybe a 60-point little unit, and even if you go into a full tank army, it's 60 points. You just drop them in and do an action with them. Like, they've just got a little bit of versatility, and I still don't know why people take Dream Sealers. Just take 6 warriors and a prime. I'm going to die on that hill. I'm going to die on that hill.
I would agree if you're taking the big bricks. I like 2x5 Gene Stealers for 75 points a piece with quick trading units, and they are
also. I think people are sleeping on in Invasion Fleet, perfectly adapted on a Broodlord, or the Tyranid Prime, just to reroll charges.
Yeah, it's great. It's really
that's super cool.
It's a 15-point It's a 15-point upgrade that massively increases your efficiency.
Absolutely.
It's good on Hive. It's good on Hive Tyrants. Like 15 points to re-roll a 4-up invulnerable save. It's really powerful.
No, absolutely. And then Elgin said the AP for Tyranids is generally anemic. Sadly, it is. Hey, with the first book, that's what we get. And a side objective Norn is really hard to come. Really hard for some armies to deal with. Ed. Yeah. I think that's our Ed from 6++. Yes, I would agree with you. So the challenge I have with Norns, and this is why I can't run one. Okay, you put it on the board and you say, right, I'm going to go after this one on the left, and your opponent goes, okay, cool. I'm just going to go that way, and then you kind of have to make that decision of, well, can they get back over here if I come away from this objective with the Norn, or do I just put the Norn there and say booga booga, like this is mine for the rest of the game? And that's an eighth of your army just sat there going, I really wish I had a longer range than 18. This is one of the challenges I have with that strategy of one side going after one side. But hey ho.
The way UKTC plays, normally there's a side objective you can just go and sit 10 termagants on, and they'll sit and hold an objective all game, and the Norn then gets to brawl in the middle of the board, which is where it wants to be. But it's a very good point, though.
Yeah. Cool. So let's go into our first list. Frederick Stappen. He had 4 wins and 1 loss with the Hydra GT 2024 from Denmark, and he was taking Unending Swarm. Yeah, I'm not biased, I promise. So this list features Death Leaper, a Hive Tyrant, and a Nero Tyrant. We have 20 Gargoyles, 20 Hormagaunts, 4 times 20 Termagants, all of them Spine Fists and Stranglewebs. You then have a Biovore, 3 Exocrines, 44 Hormagaunts in total, 2 squads of 22, 1 Neurolictor, and 3 Venom Throps. So this is I play this detachment for one reason version, and that reason is bodies. He has taken the 3 Exocrines, and you're right, absolutely. I think that's definitely something you do in this detachment, because it's the 3 damage is really nice to try and deal with Custodes, with all these different 3 things that 3 damage will get into. So Frederick lost to Drakari Space Raiders, which, come on, you got a new detachment, go and play that, dude. Then he went into Knights, 3 big lads, but absolutely battered them. He played an all-comers guard army, so nice and not just all artillery, but he did well into that. He then played an Unending Swarm mirror, which I thought was quite funny, but they had less gaunts, therefore they lost. And then he won. He beat an Eldari Good Stuff army with a 1-point win. So well done to Frederick. I think he ended up coming in like 5th or 6th, but I think this is a really interesting result. The interesting tech here is leaning in hard to all those bodies. He's got 20 Hormigants. So again, just to go back to Chris's question earlier, one of the units that I think is being slept on is Hormigants to an extent. They have -1 AP. That's a lot more AP than some units in our army.
Yeah.
And they're pretty handy. 3 attacks each. All the strength and strat you can drop on them is pretty good. So yeah, I took 2 10-mans this weekend, and I found them wanting in some matchups because sometimes the terrain's just too far away to actually do anything. But then it probably won me the game turn 1 against the Hypercrypt. So swings and roundabouts with it really, but I do quite like them at 65 points. He has a Hive Tyrant, no Tervigan, so this is a big kind of decision point. I think if you're doing an Unending Swarm list, do you take the Tervigan for 6 of lethals on your guns and to respawn like models to the units, or you take a Hive Tyrant and then yeet units across the board every turn and then give another unit -1 to hit in your opponent's turn? If you want my opinion, do the Hive Tyrant. I took a Winged Hive Tyrant because the terrain allowed me to at this Goonhammer event.
Yep.
And it was awesome. It was definitely an MVP. Tervigan was good, but man, see, the problem is if you make Termagant shooting good, it makes you want to roll the dice, and you're only going to be disappointed, guys. You're only going to be disappointed. Then we have Venom Throps detachment. So it's interesting because I think every detachment now takes gargoyles, now takes some Termagants, etc. But generally speaking, the only detachment you find Venom Throps in is Unending Swarm. So my petition is to make this the Venom Throp detachment, not the Gaunt detachment, as its pseudonym. So what do you think of this list, John? What do you reckon?
It's a pile of gaunts. It's the gaunt carpet. I think it's very strong. I think it's not. It's just going basically. I'm not going to kill anything, but I'm going to put so much pressure on the board that my 3 exocrines are going to be just picking off. For me, the exocrines are just really good at picking off the stuff that gets in the way. They're not always geared to kill all the tanks and stuff, but they're just good, efficient shooting platforms for 135 points that I think are great. And the rest of it is just trying to go, cool, here's a pile of gaunts, and you don't get to score any primary all game. Again, I don't know exactly what terrain and objectives were used at the Hydra GT, but the gaunt list is just so good at just going, cool, you don't score any primary, good luck winning the tournament.
Yeah, it's a good point. I should have put the. I was rushing today with work, so I didn't get a chance. But usually I will look at the terrain. But probably GW. I imagine. I reckon that one of the things that's really interesting with this is always putting an exocrine in reserve, at least one, because it just keeps your opponent guessing, which is really cool. Nice. Okay. Anything in the chat? We've got with Custodies being so good, I wonder if folks are sleeping on Old One Eye with these Death Spitters and Old One Eye with these 2 Death Spitter Carnifexes that Naden used to deal with Custodies at WTC.
They're still great.
Yeah, it's good. It's expensive. It's real expensive, and I think it doesn't like being touched by Custodies.
It's 390 points, and it does saw through Custodies really well. It just has the problem at the moment. Custodies now are Warden heavy, and the first time you look at a unit with that unit, they'll have a 4 at Feel No Pain, and then you need to hope that it can't advance and charge into that unit because, like Davey says, it doesn't do that much in combat versus Custodies. Like Old One Eye does a lot of damage, but the others just don't do anything.
He still only has 6 attacks, right?
Yeah,
he hits on 3s.
It's a very, very good unit versus Custodies and Necrons. I think it struggles against Ironstorm because they have enough firepower to pick it back up on the way back. But I think if you own Old One Eye and 2 Death Spitter loaded Carnifexes, you should probably play them. If you don't worry about it. That's kind of how I feel about them at the moment. So I don't own them. I'm not worried that I don't have them. If I did have them, I would probably be slamming them into every list I played.
Yeah, I've got a slightly different opinion. I don't rate them too much. I'm starting to see the value in chaff, and I think that 390 points is a lot of points. And
it is.
And I think if that gets picked up, that's devastating. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of points. is all my brain keeps telling me. Cool. Let's go to the next one. Eventually, if this works, boom. Okay. Sam Squires. So our very own Lewis Elms Saffron Slam tournament tickets available now. Probably. Sam actually went 5-0, so ignore 4 wins and 1 draw.
Nice.
Hey.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, very nice. He went 5-0. And he was playing Invasion Fleet. So just to give you a bit of insight about this list, about the event rather. The event has different terrain on every table. So some of it's quite narrative, some of it's UKTC. It's a real like a wide church of terrain. So really interesting, and you have to prepare for everything. And I think Sam's done this. Just to run through the list real quickly, he's got Death Leaper, a Winged Hive Tyrant, Neuro Tyrant, 3 times 10 Gargoyles, a Biovore, 2 Exocrines, 2 Malaceptors, 2 times 10 Gene Sealers, 2 Neurolictor, 2 Pyrovore, and 6 Von Ryan's Leapers, or as we like to call it, a bit of a Noah's Ark list. He likes his 2x2s. His wins, and so all of his wins were against Gladius, Terminators. So a Gladius detachment with Terminators, Dreads, and Armigers. A really interesting list in potentially, if you don't know what the terrain's going to be like, taking loads of things with loads of wounds and high toughness sounds pretty fun. Grey Knight Dread Knights, Tom Lohman Sky Splinter, who Tom eventually won the event. Double Hierophant Crusher, double Hyro Jewel Crusher, and then Paul James's Deathwing Spam. So he went through. So he drew with. That was it. Sorry, it's 4 wins and 1 draw. That was it. He drew with Tom. So he did a bit of a gauntlet on 6++s here with Paul and Tom. Some of the interesting tech in here. Gene Stealers with no Broodlords. So I know that a lot of people who sit on the Gene Stealer side of the fence, talk about, what the devastating wounds. But there's no Broodlord here. And 10-mans aren't cheap, right? They take up some points. So interesting to see them without Broodlords. We've got 6 Von Ryan's Leapers in this detachment. You don't tend to see them outside of Vanguard Onslaught, but I guess this is kind of, again, playing to the terrain piece, stopping scout moves, stopping someone taking over the board. It's 150 points, but maybe it can save you the game. And then potentially, if you think about November, October time last year, everyone was taking 2 or 3 units of 10 Gargoyles. That kind of changed. Everyone's gone into other data sheets at the moment, but maybe that meta's back now with Custodies being here and Hypercrypt being able to screen out half the board's pretty decent. What do you think?
Good stuff. It's good stuff. Invasion Fleet. I think not running into Custodies all tournament probably helps a lot. This army is very good at picking up Terminators. I think it's also pretty good into the Sky Splinter Drakari detachment as well. Malaceptors are almost impossible for a lot of armies to kill. Again, getting lethal hits versus Dread Knights, your efficiency of damage free shooting is really good. No, I think it's one of those. It's one of the reasons that Invasion Fleet is so good. Is I look at this list and go, I'd potentially do different things. Like I prefer Lictors over Von Ryan Leapers. I prefer Foot Hive Tyrant over Winged Hive Tyrant. But you can't argue that the results are always the result is the same because the detachment is so good.
Yeah, terrain dependent, and the detachment does the work as well, right? So yeah, you're absolutely right. I think one of the things we'll see as well, we're seeing another list coming up, but Pyrovores and Malaceptors holding hands together forever. I think it's just a really good combo.
You need them. Malaceptors are AP2, and cover and 2-up saves is a real thing. Having the Pyrovore obviously means that they don't get cover anymore.
Absolutely. Cool. Let's get on to the next one.
But going back to the interesting thing you said is, so Gene Stealers with no Broodlords. I think people are generally moving away from Broodlords. They're just a very expensive investment versus just more things. Mm-hmm. And 150 points for 10 Gene Stealers still slaps a lot of armies. They've got 40 attacks, 4 -2/1. They get sustained. Reroll 1s to hit and 1s to wound, so that you still have a huge output with that unit. And 3 times Gargoyles. Meta's back. Don't think so, but I do like it. I like it a lot.
Man, I just Gargoyles, man. I just can't write a list without them. I can't write a list without them.
I can't write a list with them because they're not painted, so I'm not allowed to write a list with them.
I see. Well, that is a good reason. And then, oh god, I've not changed a lot of stuff here, but Glenn Cartwright, Michael Glenwright, who was not at the Saffron Slam, he was at the Northampton GT, the one I was at, and he went 5-0, I think, or 5-4-1. 4-1 he went. Yep. Yes, he got right to the end. And yeah, we were all cheering him on from the sidelines. He went with the Hive Tyrant with the Strangle. So this is UKTC terrain for those who don't know. Hive Tyrant with Stranglethorn Cannon and perfectly adapted. So like what John said before, rerolling saves as well. The Neuro Tyrant, Tervigon with adaptive. So this is the interesting thing.
Yeah.
Invasion Fleet with a Tervigon with adaptive biology and 2x20 Termagants. So we'll get back to it in a second. He's obviously got a Biovore. He's got the 5 Barbgants, which were, I mentioned before. Seeing his list kind of made me go, that's pretty decent. 2 Exocrines, a Malaceptor, a Neurolictor Venomthrops. So seeing Venomthrops outside of Unending Swarm is quite rare. But I guess they're behind the Tervigon, who's commanding all your primary score. And then a non-emissary, who's going to probably also boost that OC. A Trigon to distract them, and then a Ripper Swarm, who scores you investigate signals every turn or something like that. In terms of his wins and losses, so he beat White Skies. I would tell you what's in the list, but it's unreadable. I just hate people who don't use the app or Battlescribe. Like, just do it.
Yeah.
He then beat Dread Knights. He then beat a list that essentially looked like 9th edition Gorgon, Tyranids, which is quite funny. Then he played World Eaters with a slightly changed 1975 list, but then finally lost to Dan Bates at the end, who was on Yunari. And I think, did he win it or did he come second?
He came second.
So yeah, really interesting here. Amazing primary scoring power. So I always talk about how primary is a bit of a nightmare for us. We do score secondaries quite well, but we also die in objectives with the best of them, unless you've got a loan up on there.
Yep.
So what Michael I think's done here, 2 squad determinants will just ladder out into two objectives, maybe behind a wall, and then slightly turn onto the objective so that if they kill a couple, he can just take the right ones away. And then he can bring them back in his command phase with the Tervigon, steal the primary. The Venomthrops are going to give them -1 to hit, which is really nice. And of course, a Malaceptor, if someone gets into combat or gets close to them, he can get up there and give them -1 to hit as well. So I feel like this entire battle plan is, and of course, you get the free strat for 5 up Feel No Pain with the Hive Tyrant. So this entire battle plan is like, okay, I want to sit on these objectives, and I don't want you to take them away. These are mine. And I think it clearly worked. So really well done to Michael. What do you think of this list, John?
I think it's kind of. I think the final round versus Dan Bates, this list kind of just struggles with getting. So the Dan Bates list, for those who don't know, was triple Scourges with Dark Lances and triple Shadow Spectres with Prism Cannons. All 6 of those units have shoot and scoot. And this army really struggles to get behind terrain to shoot and scoot units, whilst also being shot. It's one of the reasons, like the other list where you have a lot of Gene Stealers and Lictors and Von Ryan Leapers are actually much better into that, which is why they're much better into that style of Yunari, because you can actually get behind walls into these units that are really paper thin when you get to them, but if you can't get to them, they're really annoying to deal with. I think this army just has a lot of really good things. The Hive Tyrant with the Stranglethorn's an interesting change. Again, not running into Custodes is always a good thing. The Barbgaunts is a question that I still don't understand. Like, I know people saying, "Oh, it's good against Custodes," but in my mind, they stand in the open, they get shot, and then they die on the way back because Custodes shooting sport 5 -1/2, and it's like, this feels really rough.
Yeah.
But I like Tyranid lists that. I like all comer Tyranids invasion fleets lists because it gives you game against everything, as you can see here. Beat Marines, Dread Knights, Mother Mirror, and World Eaters, and you can't do that gearing within invasion fleet gearing towards one thing. And I just like that utility element that he's brought to the army. And I don't have a Norn, but I'd love to have one at some point. I'd love to have 3 because they are just really good units to play. Yeah. And I think this list is just another great example of the fact that yes, Tyranids are a weaker faction, but they're not weak, if that makes sense.
100%. I think that's it, right? You've got to realize you don't have to kill your opponent's entire army. You just need to score more points. and I also think this guy, Michael was doing it.
I think the other thing you have to bear in mind, and this is where this army did play into it quite strongly, a lot of UKTC missions are score 1, hold 1, hold 2 outside of supply drop. And in supply drop, you have a Norn to sit on one of your objectives.
Yeah.
Like taking that one. And that's where you come back to that point of like Dreadmad said, like Ed said, is sit on a side objective. Supply drop is great for a Norn. But you only normally have to hold 2 objectives. So 20 Termagants is not being taken off by anything short of a couple of Warden units. So I think that's a big thing, and I think that's where this list really played out really positively.
Yeah, man. So these Termagants, they're -1 to hit in shooting. They have a 5-up armor, 4-up in cover. They're getting the cover and -1 to hit from Venom Throws. They then have a 5-up filling up in for free every turn. Like, yeah, it's pretty durable. And then you bring back D3+3. So I think if you can, even the he had the what they called the Forge World Eldari Flamer Dash big gun.
Shadow Spectres.
Yeah, the Shadow Spectres. So the flamers on them. If he puts everything into that one unit, he probably gets through it, and then once it's gone, it's gone.
Yep.
So I think that's maybe what I did, or maybe kill the Tervigan ahead of time. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, well done to Michael though. Great showing there. And then we've got just to go a little bit more around the world. We've got Marek Vlinka. I'm going to say that 5 wins at the Ogre Cub Singles 2024 in the Czech Republic, and he took Invasion Fleet as well. So ignore the red if those were all wins. If his wins and losses, the list real quick is Death Leaper, Hive Tyrant with Stranglethorn. With the Stranglethorn cannon and adaptive biology. So again, we're seeing that reroll the 4-up save.
So
Neurotyrant.
Adaptive biology is the 5-up feel no pain that when you at the beginning
you're right.
You've taken a wound, it goes to 4-up feel no pain, which on a Hive Tyrant is great. Gets a free 5-up feel no pain. I think it's a bit unnecessary in a lot of lists, but
yeah, I don't know. I think I prefer the perfectly adapted. Actually, I think I'd rather because how many times are you getting shot by it? You know, how many times is a Hive Tyrant getting shot in a turn? If something's got an angle on it, then yeah. But I don't think everything gets an angle on it. But anyway,
it's almost half the points. That's perfectly adapted 15 points, which is why it's such a good item.
Fair. Yeah.
You've got spare points left over.
2 times 10 gargoyles, Biovore, 3 Exocrines, 3 Malaceptors, 4 big boys, Pyrovore to take away cover, and a Trigon. So this is the list I mentioned before that's leaning full into monsters. He went into a CSM list that was kind of like what they played in December, but with less stuff. Orcs, good stuff. He beat them by 1 point, so well done on that one. A double more World Eaters list, which was really interesting to see. He then played a Custodes list and 19 won it, which was really powerful. And then a heavy Kassagan Guard list. So, you know, he without playing Necrons, he would have done essentially what I would consider to be a bit of a gauntlet here. And no real extra tech to talk about here. It's heavy monster focus. Pyrovores are great in this list. It's just a shame that it's not Crusher Stampede, right? The rules are just that little bit better.
The rules are slightly better in Invasion Fleet. Bizarrely, I played against Zach last week and his Custodes list. I only have 2 Malaceptors, and we were talking at the end of it, and I'm tempted to go to 3 Malaceptors myself. In a world where combat's a thing, in a world where melee is becoming better, Malaceptors are king of Tyranids. The difference between when you are -1 to hit, have a 4-up invulnerable save and a 5-up feel no pain, 5 Custodian Guard, even with Trajan, do not kill a Malaceptor, even with +1 to wound. They don't kill it because it's got 4-up invulnerable save, and then you reduce. So half the damage is gone, and they wound you on 4s anyway. It's even worse with Wardens. Wardens just do not kill Malaceptors.
Yeah, man. So it's -1 to hit, so they hit on 3s, then they wound on 4s.
Wound on
and
5s.
You save
generally.
on 4s.
They wound on 5s because T11 strength 7. If they don't have the stratagem available because they've charged 2 of them at the same time, one unit just it's really interesting the difference that a Malaceptor makes to.
That is interesting, yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, but now I'm in combat with the Malaceptor. It's like, yes, a Malaceptor can still shoot other things because it's a monster, and there's a very good chance that they don't also kill it in the next round either. So they're really good roadblocks in these combat matchups, especially like World Eaters. Again, it's combat. So if you went through this whole list, like Chaos Space Marines, I think Tyranids were really good against Chaos Space Marines when Chaos Space Marines were really good because Malaceptors were brilliant. Like the Lord and Chosen unit would run in, and you'd be like, yeah, full rerolls to hit and wound, and the Malaceptor goes cool. -1 to hit, so you hit on 4s, so you're taking out a huge amount of damage. They wound you on 6s, even with full rerolls, and you just watch these chosen units just bounce off these Malaceptors, and then the Malaceptor will probably kill 2 of them on the way back with its damage too. Just 6 attacks damage too was just really efficient. And if you look at these lists, the first 4 lists are all wanting to get into combat with you, and Malaceptors go, cool, that's where I want to be as well. I want to be in the middle of the board brawling, and then allowing the exocrines to work around the outside. So I've bizarrely, even before I saw this list, I've been thinking about how do I get a 3rd Malaceptor in the list. It's just fantastic that someone else did it first.
Yeah, no, you bang on. I haven't seen it like that before, and now that I do, I can't unsee it. I think that's a really powerful roadblock, because the thing is, it probably won't kill them back, but it doesn't need to, right? It just keeps them busy.
It's one of those ones that like you say, it's if they don't have the Blade Wizard with the fullback shoot and charge, that Custodian Guard unit,
that was my next question actually. Yeah,
the Warden unit or the Custodian Guard is now stuck in combat with this Malaceptor, and in the turn that they don't pop the strat, they're winning on 5s, which, although even when you have a pile of dice, like say for example they've got 5 attacks each, so it's 20 attacks, you hit him with 15, you're wounding with 5. That is the raw numbers on Custodes units hitting. So you win with 5. You only get 2 or 3 wounds through, which is 4 to 6 damage, and then it's sort of between 2 to 5 wounds that actually stick. That's why the Malaceptor is so good. Yeah. And also, when you do drop the Custodes units down below half strength, they're suddenly 6s to wound.
Yeah, so of course, absolutely.
You can counter punch with stuff. So you can put the Hive Tyrant in, he kills a couple of them. The Malaceptor's probably killed 1 or 2 over a couple of rounds. And some of the Custodes units, like, I actually don't do any damage to you anymore. And they then have to commit more resources. And the more resources they commit, the Trigon then improve. Like, the Trigon's efficiency is better because he's got better deep strike choices as well. And I love this army list. I think this is where I want to end up. I'd have Gaunts over, I'd have Termagants over Gargoyles, personally. I wouldn't have the Neurotyrant because I'd be wanting to play with Lictors, but I definitely think the 2 Pyrovores might be needed if you're playing Malaceptor heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice, cool, great explanation of that there, John. Thanks. I think we've got one more to go. Let's have a look. No, that's it. So just going to the wall real quick. We have Mr. Scrivens saying hello. Well, Nidza, I think that's him saying hello. Hello, young John. I hope you're well. And then our last question, unless you've got one urgently, get it in the chat quickly. We've got Craig Hoyland saying, how did Nids fare against Death Guard? It's an interesting one. I think it depends on the detachment. I spoke to a Death Guard player who was talking to him about what he would do against Unending Swarm, and he said, yeah, without a doubt, I am minus in Euro C. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting, actually, because I thought he might have made them even easier to kill and put me on 6-up saves or something. So, no, it was quite interesting. I think with our access to mortals and unless you're an invasion fleet, you can pop a strat for feel no pain. Can you pop a strat for feel no pain when you're targeted with the grenade strat?
If it's in the shooting phase, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So,
so I believe the wording of it is when you're targeted. Well, because it depends on the wording of the grenade strat. If the grenade strat is, if it's like instead of shooting, so it's still technically a shooting attack, then yes.
No, because you can still shoot after you've grenaded. So it says choose a unit that's eligible to shoot, I believe, and it does the grenade attack, and then you can shoot afterwards, I believe.
Yes. So because this is going to be where we resort to.
Entropic Tyranid, just I've seen your question there. Just let us know what detachment you play, and then that'll give us a bit of a clue as to what are the must-have units, because I think it very much is detachment heavy.
Yeah, so I am going to find give me 2 seconds to find the strategy. I just need to work out exactly how it's worded.
Yeah.
The rapid regeneration is 1 Tyranid unit from your army that is selected as the target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks. So if the grenade counts as an attack, you get it. But you're also it depends on, yes, you can shoot afterwards, but if it's part of a unit's activation, you would get the feel no pain, because the unit. It depends on how grenade works. If you can grenade something, then go to another unit.
Yeah, I think it's separate.
Yeah, so
I don't think you have to shoot after grenading. I think it's like that's that done. Then you select that unit to shoot.
Yeah, it'd be interesting actually.
So
I'd need to have a look.
I think Entropic Tyranny. I think the list we just looked at is probably full of really interesting options to take for an invasion fleet in UKTC terrain. Of course, UKTC terrain really benefits infantry, generally speaking, because you can go through walls and there's lots of walls on it. So what you really want is something like Scourge or things like that can shoot big heavy weapons and then jump away behind a terrain piece. But we don't have that. So we have to deal with what we've got. So things, I love gargoyles in it because they can clog up move block vehicles who can't get between the two, like a lot of the building gaps. I would also obviously say Exocrines. I think the Malaceptors, again, like John says, like really useful because you're always going to get cover and that's really going to be helpful for you. But yeah, I think John's probably a better place to say. John, what are the must-have units in UKTC terrain for Invasion Fleet?
So just quickly on the grenade one, I would get your TO to rule it because it's not necessarily clear because Games Workshop tends to use different wording for the same thing. So target of an attack it's bizarre. I'd get your TO to rule on it for that question because it's a bit unclear. But in terms of Invasion Fleet, Exocrines, number one, always have Exocrines. They're amazing in Invasion Fleet. Hive Tyrant as well, I think, is almost essential. They're my two big ones. Whenever I start a Tyranid list, it's number one is Hive Tyrant, preferably on foot for me with Heavy Venom Cannon and the Bone Sword. And then some number between up to 3 Exocrines, normally 3. And then kind of from there, it's the Biovore. They're the 3 things that you must have. They're the 3 things you must have in Tyranids Invasion Fleet on UKTC is Biovore, Hive Tyrant, and Exocrines. And then kind of the rest of it's take your fancy. For example, I swear by the Trigon. I love that model. I think it's incredible. But I also go by Termagants and Lictors, which is unusual because a lot of people go for Neurolictors and Gargoyles. Not everyone goes for Malaceptors, and a lot of people go for Neurotyrant, which I don't. So it's kind of like it's swings and roundabouts. But if you're looking for like what are the must-have units on UKTC terrain, it's Exocrines, Biovore, and for me is the Hive Tyrant.
I'd maybe suggest adding Death Leaper to that list because he's actually pretty good on UKTC terrain.
Yep, very easy to hide lone op / Lictors.
Yeah. And you wouldn't catch me taking a Winged Hive Tyrant on any UKTC terrain.
Please don't.
Because you cannot hide it. It will die immediately.
You can't move it, let alone hide it.
Yeah, there is that as well, yeah. You can get it up and over the wall, but it's not going anywhere else. Cool. And that brings us to the end of the show, guys, in an hour and 10, hour and 12. Thank you so much for coming and listening to us chat on. Of course, come and join our Discord on the 6++ Discord, where John and I and a bunch of other really cool guys and gals talk about Tyranids. And you can put lists in there and we all discuss lists. It's really fun, really cool group, really positive. I'm really proud of all the people in that Discord of creating a really cool environment to test ideas. Of course, cool. That'll be it. Death Leaper can hide behind the big L's, just as an FYI.
He can actually hide behind all of them as long as you physically can't draw a line of sight to him. So the little L's are also obscuring terrain. He is infantry, so even if you can see Death Leaper over the top, as long as you're not in the terrain piece, you are obscured.
For sure. I maybe think he was trying to get his head around being in the terrain piece for that little L, because you never want to be behind a little L, right? Because if you're there, you want to be in the little L so you can charge out the way of it and get the benefit of your aura. But I like to put him on the big L on the left hand side, where there's a terrain, where there's an objective. You can just touch it, and then anyone who jumps onto it is -1 leadership. If you've got a Neurolictor next to him, he then bops him for -1 on his leadership, and then they fail, and then you murder them.
Yes.
Cool. Nice. Thanks very much, guys. Come and join the Discord. Come and talk to us. Catch you later. Have a great one. Goodbye.